What's up, guys? I was asked about upper body isometric exercises. I use a lot of isos for various health purposes in the lower body and the jump training programs. So somebody saw that and then they asked me about upper body stuff. And I have explored this realm. I've been through a fair amount of like wrist and elbow pains and shoulder stuff. Okay, so I have kind of gone through this. So I'm going to share just like a whole bunch of options. Okay, we have a lot of different muscles in the forearm, a lot of different wrist and elbow movements to work with. So there's potential for like tons of different variations here. I'm just going to go through a list off the top of my head here, and hopefully I can remember all the ones I wanted to put in here. And yeah, hopefully it'll be helpful for some people. Okay. All right. So we're going to start with just basic wrist stuff. All right. So we're going to do wrist flexion, which you can do your classic wrist curls. All right, certainly nothing wrong with that. You could simply go an iso here, so it's a wrist flexion iso. All right, and that's going to be getting a stimulus on the flexors, okay, in your forearm. Another isometric I've used for that is putting weight on your hands, like on the upper part of the palm here, and being in an extended wrist position, or a hyperextended actually, and then just placing some weight on that upper part of the palm and then holding there. Okay. All right. So there's some wrist flexion options. Then we got wrist extension, and certainly you can just do your typical iso hold here. Okay. And so you got your extensors of the forearm now doing that isometric work. You could do some more repetition based type of thing there as well, like actually moving the wrist. All right. And there's other options for this type of thing. Maybe you've seen some of them. All right. So we got flexion extension there. Then we're going to go with lateral flexion and medial flexion, or radial and ulnar deviation. Okay. So a couple options for this in terms of the implement. I'm going to use this long stick here, which doesn't weigh much, but because it's long, it has leverage, and that can provide enough load. Okay, so your radial deviation would be lifting like so. Okay, and again, you could do the repetitions, or you could do an iso hold like this. Isos, they're not necessarily magical, but they do give you a way of controlling the stress that you're placing on, whatever tissue you're trying to work, right? So when I'm moving up and down, there's points in there of higher force. So if I had something that was bothering me, it might be better to just iso it so that I can just stay steady and I don't have these big fluctuations in the amount of force going through that tissue, okay? But all right, so there's your radial deviation, iso or reps. Then you got your ulnar deviation, which I do up here. Okay. So the weight of the stick is pulling my wrist this way. Okay. And I'm resisting that with that isometric hold. Okay. So I go in that position. Again, you could do repetition here. So it's kind of like a chopping action. All right. So, a longer stick like this is an option. Something shorter with a little bit more weight to it works. I'm going to show you, we can do these exercises with a sledgehammer as well. Now, because there's a lot of weight here, I don't need to use like the long lever. Okay, so I would be pretty short. And there's my iso hold there for the radial deviation. Here it is for the ulnar deviation. That one's a little smaller, or sorry, a little stronger. So I'd probably go, a little longer lever there. Yeah, so I got some good tension on that side of my forearm there. Okay, again, you could do the reps, you could do the iso. Could be good either way. All right, so then we're going to go pronation, supination of the wrists. Okay, and so here we're going short lever, and I'm just going to hold like this. Okay, so this side, that weight is, trying to flip my wrist over this way, so I'm resisting that. This one, okay, so we're talking about the wrist, but these forearm muscles actually run up and attach here. So this would be one, if you have lateral elbow pain, this type of iso could definitely help with that, right? And again, it could be repetition based. The iso is just going to keep it gentle. All right, so that would be a, what's my term? So this is pronated. So that would be a supination iso, right? I'm pulling, or I'm not allowing myself to get pulled into more pronation. So then this would be a pronation iso. So I'm here. So now that weight is, flipping my wrist out this way, and I'm resisting that. And this one, that medial elbow pain, I actually do this one as a routine because I have medial elbow pain sometimes, particularly from throwing. Okay, so I actually use this one, 30-second holds, 3-4 repetitions of that. I use this one pretty consistently. Yeah, so there's your pronation supination. Again, you could do some reps, but again, if you're trying to be therapeutic, keep those reps gentle if you're not going to do the isometric. Okay? All right. So there's our motions of the wrist covered. Now, some of those are kind of duplicates because, we are like working forearm muscles that run all the way up here. So if we start talking about actions at the elbow, we're going to hit some of that same stuff. Okay? So elbow, it's less complicated. You really have flexion, extension, and then you just have it with a pronated or supinated position of the hand or the wrist. An iso for the biceps, for example, just be your simple bicep curl hold. And now we're getting, again, those wrist flexors as well here. And then for the biceps, this would reduce their role, but you have non-bicep elbow flexors. You got your brachioradialis and your brachialis. And so this is actually another area that I've had to explore because of my clean and snatch obsession. You get this violent action in those in the second pull, and I have gotten irritation or minor injuries in those non-bicep elbow flexors. And so then I've used that pronated position, or that like reverse bicep curl, as people call it, that position. And I've done isometrics there as well. Okay. So yeah, you got that elbow flexion iso, but with the two different grips to get different muscles in the forearm. All right. This is another one that, again, this could be relevant for your lateral elbow pain. And then this one might be more relevant for that medial elbow pain. Okay. So there's your elbow flexion isos. You could certainly do the neutral grip as well. Okay, everything's an option. You never know what might hit the particular spot that you're going for. Then elbow extension iso, or a tricep iso, definitely relevant if you got some pain back here, which is not uncommon. I've dealt with that. Okay, so this could be a two-hand. Because this dumbbell is light, I would probably just one-hand this, okay, and doing an isometric hold there. Definitely helpful. A tricep iso, okay. Obviously, you could just do like a tricep exercise, but again, the iso keeps things controlled and gentle. Okay, so that's really the elbow movements, and so that's not as complicated. Then let's talk about the shoulder. Million movements at the shoulder, right? Ball and socket joint's got the most range of all your joints in the body. So I'm not going to do every possible motion. I will just say, pushing and pulling strength is generally going to be good for your shoulder health. And so you can just do like basic strength training. But then also, again, the isos can be helpful. So for example, I've had like lateral pec or like pec tendon pain before, and so I've used a push-up iso, right? Just getting down here, getting some tension and holding. You can do different depths, and that can sort of change where you might feel it the most. depending on, exactly where you're trying to target. You could use that, the depth to modify that. And then, I mean, obviously you can also get some tricep ISO in there as well. If you wanted to load the triceps more in that, you could just do a narrow grip or like a diamond grip, okay? You could easily turn that to a tricep ISO. And then if you need to make the push-up ISO easier, just put your hands up on a bench or something like that, and that makes it easier, regardless of which variation you're trying to do. Then, a pulling exercise you could ISO as well, right? I could do a pull-up hold halfway up, all right? I don't know, what specific issue that might be most relevant for. Maybe if you have like a lat tendon thing going on, which I have not dealt with, but yeah, you could do a pull-up ISO, or probably more realistically be like a lat pull-down ISO, so that you could, control the weight, like start lighter. So yeah, you could just do a lat pull-down hold, and again, you could explore different depths and see if one of those, works best for you. So yeah, you got pushing and pulling ISOs. Then for the deltoids, again, I don't know if it's real common, but if you had some type of like deltoid attachment issue, you could do an ISO there, where it could just be like a simple lateral raise ISO, and you could try holding at different points. If you get too low, you really don't have any load on the muscle anymore. So to do that low one, you would just push into a wall, or you could even just like hold your arm down and push out like this. Okay, and so then I'm getting a good amount of tension in the deltoid there. You could certainly do that, like pulling backwards as well to get more of that posterior delt, or you could do more pushing forward in front of you, get more of that anterior delt. Okay, and then there's the rotator cuff. So, you've probably seen these exercises. You have external rotation of the shoulder. All right, this is, this exercise can definitely be really good for helping the shoulder out. Again, you could ISO it. So if you had like supraspinatus tendonitis, something like that, you could, well, yeah, that 20 is probably heavy for that, but you could do like a hold right here. And I'd probably use like that, around that horizontal position, so that gravity has leverage. And obviously you could mess with the angle a little bit, but like if you go down all the way here, now there's not really load on it, on rotation anyway, because the leverage is gone. So yeah, somewhere more around that horizontal area. All right, probably seen people, do that with a cable like so as well. Definitely an option. Then the internal rotation. Now again, I don't know if there's like a particular issue where an internal rotation ISO would be especially relevant. I guess maybe subscap tendonitis. I'm not sure if that's a thing, but and so that would be, your cable rotating in like so, or again, you could ISO it here with the cable pulling your hand outward, so it's pulling you towards external rotation, but you're holding it in internal rotation. Another way to do it though would be using gravity and then laying down, which I'll use the bench real quick for. So that would be laying back, going here, then rotating back. So now gravity's got leverage pulling me into external rotation, and I'm having to hold the shoulder in internal rotation. All right. Or of course, there is the repetition approach. Okay. All right. So that's off the top of my head. I don't know if I'm forgetting any obvious ones here. Oh, there's one other one specifically for your finger muscles, right? Your flexor digitorum. It's that hold, or that putting weight on your hands on the ground, but then you can do it on your fingers. Okay. And again, if you have an elbow pain, the flexor digitorum runs all the way up there, attaches up there on the, I believe, the medial elbow. Don't quote me on that. But so, you never know which one of these things might be relevant for your particular issue, or like might target your particular spot. So that's why you try a lot of stuff and see what works. But yeah, so it's just putting weight on the fingers instead of like the upper part of the palm like we did before. All right. Then one other thing that comes to mind would be the rice bucket or the sand bucket, where you just like bury your hands in it and then you just like squeeze repeatedly. Okay, and moving through the sand or the rice gives you resistance, and so then you actually work the flexor digitorum and the extensor digitorum as you're moving your fingers back out to do the squeezing. Okay, so you kind of work it both ways. Yeah, that's a common one in like baseball, maybe golf. You know, like some of these sports that have like lots of forearm and elbow stress. Yeah, they'll use that sand or that rice bucket. Okay. All right, I'm going to end it there. I think I did decently.